In the late 11th century, Europe was a land of castles, hunger, faith, and violence.
Kings ruled unevenly, nobles fought constantly, and ordinary people lived beneath the shadow of war. Across the countryside, stone churches rose higher, while armed knights rode through villages with swords drawn.
This was not yet the Europe of nations, but a world of lords, bishops, peasants, and warriors. At the center of this world stood the church, powerful, wealthy, and deeply woven into daily life. To medieval Christians, life on earth was brief, fragile, and filled with spiritual danger. Heaven, hell, sin, penance, and salvation were not abstract ideas. They were urgent realities.
Every famine, plague, eclipse, and defeat could be interpreted as a sign from God.
But for the warrior class, this created a painful contradiction that shaped the medieval mind. Knights were expected to fight, yet killing was still considered a grave spiritual burden.
A man might win glory on the battlefield and still fear damnation for the blood he spilled. The Church tried to restrain violence through movements called the Peace and Truce of God.
These movements attempted to protect peasants, clergy, women, and holy places from noble warfare.
But the sword remained central to aristocratic life, identity, honor, and survival. Europe was searching for a way to turn violence away from Christians and toward a sacred purpose. Far to the east, another Christian empire was facing a crisis that would change history. The Byzantine Empire, heir of Rome in the east, had long guarded the gateway between Europe and Asia.
Its capital, Constantinople, was one of the richest and most magnificent cities in the world.
But by the 11th century, Byzantine power had begun to weaken under military and political pressure.
New enemies appeared from the steppes and mountains of Asia, the Seljuk Turks.
The Seljuks were fierce warriors, skilled horsemen, and recent converts to Islam. They expanded rapidly across Persia, Syria, and Anatolia, challenging older powers of the Islamic world.
In 1071, the Byzantines met the Seljuks at the Battle of Manzikert.
The result was catastrophic. Emperor Romanos IV was defeated and captured.
Manzikert did not immediately destroy Byzantium, but it opened Anatolia to Turkish settlement.
Anatolia was not a distant borderland. It was the empire's military heartland.
Its farms, towns, and soldiers had fed and defended Constantinople for generations. Now much of that land slipped from Byzantine control, weakening the empire's ability to recover.
The Byzantine emperor needed help, and he looked westward toward Latin Christendom.
In Constantinople, Emperor Alexios I Komnenos understood the danger clearly.
He did not ask for a mass movement of peasants, preachers, and wandering warriors.
He wanted disciplined military support, Western knights who could serve Byzantine strategy. But the appeal he sent west would be transformed into something far larger than he expected.
At this moment, the papacy was also fighting for power and authority in Western Europe.
The Pope was not simply a religious figure. He was a political force in a divided world.
For decades, popes and emperors had struggled over who controlled the Church. The Holy Land calls to us. It is time to take up the cross and march east. By the authority of God, I demand it be so.
Could kings appoint bishops? Or
Did spiritual power belong only to the church?
The question was not technical. It was about who ruled Christian society. But his position was not secure. A rival claimant challenged his authority. If we do not act now, Jerusalem will be lost forever. God wills it. He began to frame the conflict as a sacred journey toward Jerusalem. Jerusalem was the holiest city in the Christian imagination.
It was the city of Christ's crucifixion, burial, and resurrection.
For centuries, Christian pilgrims had traveled there, even under Muslim rule. The city was not new to Christian devotion, but now it became the emotional center of a call to arms.
Urban's message fused pilgrimage, penance, rescue, and warfare into one powerful idea. A knight could fight, travel, suffer, and receive spiritual reward through a holy expedition.
This was revolutionary. War, normally sinful, could be presented as an act of devotion. France was fertile ground for his message, filled with restless nobles and warrior families.
Many younger sons had little inheritance and few prospects beyond service, marriage, or war.
Urban spoke to a society already trained to think in terms of honor, loyalty, and sacred duty.
For too long have the holy places been desecrated. It is time for action.
God wills it. Take up the cross and reclaim the Holy Land. Your service here will guarantee the remission of your sins.
Our help is in the name of the Lord. Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
The Lord offers you an opportunity. Let this therefore be your war cry.
Deus vult, God wills it.
Each account differs, shaped by memory, politics, and the success of the crusade itself.
Yet all agree that Urban called Western Christians to an armed pilgrimage.
He spoke of Eastern Christians suffering under Muslim rule.
He described holy places, desecration, danger, and the need for rescue.
He urged knights to stop fighting one another and turn their swords eastward. For warriors haunted by violence, the crusade offered a path towards salvation. The battlefield became connected to the pilgrimage road.
The sword became connected to the cross.
The journey to Jerusalem became both physical and spiritual.
According to later tradition, the crowd answered with a cry, Deus vult.
Urban ordered those who joined to wear the sign of the cross on their clothing.
This cross marked them as pilgrims, soldiers, penitents, and servants of a sacred cause. They were not yet called crusaders in the modern sense.
They were people who had taken the cross, bound by vow and expectation.
The message spread with extraordinary speed.
Bishops, priests, and charismatic preachers carried Urban's call from town to town.
Brothers and sisters, hear the word of the Lord. The path to salvation is narrow and fraught with peril.
Peter inspired crowds far beyond the noble warrior class Urban had expected.
Peasants, townspeople, poor knights, women, monks, and families began to dream of Jerusalem.
For many, the crusade was not strategy. It was salvation, adventure, escape, and apocalypse.
Some believed the journey might bring them closer to the end of days. Others hoped for land, wealth, forgiveness, or a new life beyond Europe.
The official expedition was supposed to depart later, under noble leadership.
Fresh loaves, baked this morn.
I'll give you 1 coin for that one.
2, and not a farthing less.
Crowds began moving east before the armies of princes were ready. This early wave would later be remembered as the People's Crusade.
It revealed both the emotional power and the terrible danger of Urban's message.
A sacred idea, once released, could not be perfectly controlled.
Across Europe, excitement mixed with fear, hope, rumor, and violence.
The call to liberate Jerusalem also awakened hatred against perceived enemies at home.
Jewish communities in parts of the Rhineland became targets of crusading mobs.
These massacres were not accidents of history. They were part of the dark side of holy war.
Some crusaders asked why they should travel east to fight non-Christians, while Jews lived nearby.
Church leaders sometimes condemned these attacks, but often failed to stop them.
The birth of crusading was therefore marked by devotion, courage, fear, and atrocity.
This complexity is essential. The crusade cannot be understood as only faith or only conquest. It was a movement born from theology, politics, violence, social pressure, and deep emotion.
For Pope Urban II, the response must have seemed astonishing.
The Pope had offered Western knights a new identity, warrior pilgrims of Christ. But he had also unleashed forces that no single ruler could fully command.
The road to Jerusalem was long, dangerous, and filled with uncertainty. From France, Germany, and Italy, groups prepared to cross rivers, mountains, and empires. They would need food, money, horses, weapons, ships, guides, and alliances.
Many sold land, borrowed money, or placed property under church protection.
Taking the cross was not a simple decision. It was a vow before God.
Failure to fulfill that vow could bring shame, guilt, and spiritual fear.
The wealthy prepared armor and retinues. The poor prepared faith and desperation.
No one truly knew what waited beyond Hungary, Byzantium, and Anatolia.
Stories of the East were filled with wonder, wealth, danger, and holy memory.
To some, Jerusalem was a real city. To others, it was almost a vision of heaven.
Meanwhile, Emperor Alexios in Constantinople expected manageable Western reinforcements.
What he would receive was something far more unpredictable. Thousands of armed pilgrims, speaking different languages, carrying different ambitions, were coming.
Guile. The Byzantines feared these Westerners almost as much as they needed them.
To Greek observers, Latin knights could appear violent, arrogant, and difficult to control.
To Latin crusaders, Byzantium could appear rich, suspicious, and insufficiently committed.
This mutual distrust would shape the crusade from the beginning.
The First Crusade was never a single unified army under one king.
It was a coalition of nobles, bishops, knights, servants, and non-combatants.
Its leaders included men whose names would become legendary.
The Holy Father calls for aid in the east.
It is God's will. The path is clear.
But what of our lands while we are gone?
Each carried faith, ambition, pride, and private political interests.
Some sought salvation. Some sought honor. Some may have sought land and power. A man could sincerely believe in God and still desire glory.
He could seek forgiveness and still dream of conquest.
That is what makes the Crusades so difficult and so human.
Urban's genius was that he gave different people one shared language.
To the knight, he offered a holy war.
To the sinner, he offered penance.
To the poor, he offered hope.
To the church, he offered leadership. To Byzantium, he offered aid, though not in the form Alexios expected.
The concept of holy war did not appear from nothing in 1095.
Go forth, soldier of Christ. Take up the sign of the cross, and you will redeem your soul.
Saint Augustine had written about just war centuries earlier.
A fair price for the best grain and pots in the market, good woman.
It seems a mite, dear.
the Crusader did not merely fight for territory.
He journeyed to a holy place, endured suffering, and believed his soul was at stake. The cross sewn onto his clothes became a public sign of sacred obligation.
It told everyone that he had left ordinary life behind.
In villages and castles, families faced the consequences of that decision.
Wives managed estates. Children watched fathers depart. Tenants carried new burdens.
Some crusaders never returned, and many knew they might die far from home.
Yet the fear of death could strengthen rather than weaken their commitment. For a medieval believer, death on pilgrimage might be spiritually meaningful.
I will not yield my right to this land.
Defy the church, and you defy God himself.
It means their world understood violence, sin, and salvation differently from ours. They were people formed by their age, capable of sacrifice, cruelty, courage, and greed.
The time has come, brothers, to take up the cross. God himself wills this sacred journey. All who go shall have their sins forgiven. Hear the decree of this sacred council. We must act now to reclaim the Holy Land from the infidels.
It turned Jerusalem into the goal of armies. It turned knights into pilgrims.
It turned the papacy into the voice of an international Christian cause.
By early 1096, the first waves of crusaders were already moving.
Their path would cross Europe toward the Byzantine frontier.
Some marched with discipline. Others moved as hungry crowds, driven by rumor and faith.
Local rulers watched them with alarm, uncertain whether to welcome or fear them.
Cities had to feed them. Roads had to bear them. Borders had to control them.
The crusade was becoming not just an army, but a migration.
It carried priests, blacksmiths, cooks, servants, wives, children, and countless camp followers. This was one reason the journey became so dangerous. A professional army can be hard to supply. A holy crowd is far harder.
Hunger, disease, panic, and misunderstanding followed the movement east.
Yet the dream of Jerusalem remained powerful enough to keep people moving.
Every mile became part of the vow. Every hardship could be interpreted as a test from God.
Every rumor of victory or miracle strengthened the belief that heaven guided them.
But beyond Europe, the political world was far more complex than many crusaders understood.
The Islamic world was not a single united enemy.
Finest grain in the Shire. Only 3 pence a sack.
3 pence. I'll give you 2.
The Seljuks, Fatimids, local emirs, and other factions competed for influence. These divisions would later help the Crusaders in unexpected ways.
But in 1095, most Western Europeans saw the East through religious imagination.
They did not fully understand its languages, politics, cultures, or rivalries.
20 pence for this cloth. I'll give you 10.
10 will not cover the cost of the wool, master. 15, and it is yours.
3 pennies, no more.
Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison.
It is worth 5, master.
Urban's call reshaped the map of medieval ambition.
For centuries, Christian warriors had fought each other for land and honor. Now they were told that the greatest battlefield lay beyond Europe. The road to salvation ran through Anatolia, Syria, and finally Jerusalem.
The idea was magnificent to some, terrifying to others, and disastrous for many.
It would also produce massacres that stained the movement from the beginning.
The crusade was born from sincere faith, but faith did not prevent brutality.
It was born from ideals of rescue, but rescue could become conquest.
Fresh bread! Get your fresh bread here!
Finest wool, woven by the sisters themselves.
Ale! Cold ale for the thirsty traveler.
That is why the First Crusade remains one of the most debatable events in history.
Was it a pilgrimage, a war, a colonizing movement, or an explosion of religious emotion?
The answer is that it was all of these at once. For knights, it promised honor and forgiveness. For the poor, it promised hope beyond the limits of village life. For Jerusalem, it promised the arrival of armies from a distant world.
It is God's will. We must reclaim the Holy Land from the infidels.
An age in which pilgrimage could march behind banners and swords.
An age in which the cross became not only a symbol of suffering, but a sign of armed expedition.
As winter fell over Europe, thousands prepared to leave everything behind.
Under a grandmother, they did not know that most of them would never see Jerusalem.
They did not know that famine, betrayal, battle, and disease waited on the road. They only knew that the Pope had called, the cross had been taken, and God seemed to will it.
My lord, the Northern Duke approaches this position.
He will not take this land. Prepare the men for battle.